All right, welcome back to our second episode of Spinal Strength. For those who joined us last time, we covered creatine. I'm Dr. Kern Singh. I am a board-certified orthopedic surgeon, spine surgeon, joined by my co-host, Alex Stroka. So welcome back. Alex, how are you, man? How are you?
I'm well. I'm excited about this topic.
We're going to cover caffeine. So we're going to hit it hard and we're going to go through some facts, fiction, and how to use it maybe as a pre-workout supplement. But let's talk about some important things. You're my numbers guy or my analytics guy. We had 0 followers last time. What are we at now?
Just checked, 36.
36.
So we are accepting sponsorships at scale.
Well, just before I go into the math, because you probably didn't know before in my prior life, before I became this cool person you see before you, I was a mathlete. Okay, I was a mathlete. Yeah, where you were going on dates and going to prom and doing all those things. I was hitting it hard for the national math competition. Okay, saving us from the Chinese takeover that's happening now. All right, so let me tell you this. What percentage growth have we had? We have, 36 followers? We had 0. What do you think?
Dude.
I'm going to put you on the spot, man. I'm putting you on the spot.
Now everyone's going to think I'm way dumber than I actually am.
By the way, Alex is not in the medical profession. Many people ask me that. He's just a jacked up dude that does all of our marketing. He's a good dude. I've known him for 10 years. So what's the number you got for me, math guy?
If you went from 0 to 1, that's 100%. Yeah?
No.
Okay.
1 to 2 would be 100%. Here's the deal. It's 36 over 0. So that means we actually have infinite growth. Okay? So that's what Spotify needs to put this on the top of their charts. Joe Rogan needs to be bumped down because he's not seeing infinite growth. Okay? So
my logic was actually right. You knew that you could take advantage of me.
Yes, I did. This you know what? It's me getting back at you for going to prom. Okay, that's the problem here.
Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't tell you this because Alex and I haven't spoken since last week, but Kirkland did not come through with our sponsorship, so I've switched over to Waterloo. Okay, Waterloo.
You really were loyal for 7 days.
I only asked for $5 for your fund. Okay, to get you out of your mom's basement or wherever you're shooting this video from. All right, so let's start with caffeine. So we talked about this last episode, and I said that creatine was the second most studied stimulant, performance enhancer, and you correctly said caffeine was number 1. So let me ask you: do you use caffeine in general?
Gosh, I would say I abuse caffeine.
How so? Actually, tell me.
It's very routinely the first thing that I ingest in the morning. I will say I've improved, but my caffeine intake was probably anywhere from 300 to 500, milligrams of caffeine per day.
So you were tracking it.
Yeah, mostly the only reason I knew would be because I would drink an energy drink, like a Ghost energy drink, for instance, that has 200, and if I drank 2 of those, I knew, okay, I've consumed 400. But oftentimes...
And 400 in general has been kind of the number thrown around. We'll talk about how we get to that, but 400 is kind of the number on the max side for most people, but we'll circle back to that.
I think... maybe ask me the same question 4 or 5 years ago, and I was probably more in the 600 to 700 daily, drinking 3 bangs that have 300 milligrams of caffeine in them. But I started to honestly get diminishing returns, which I'm sure we'll kind of probably talk about. But
yeah, so let me pause you right there. So let's just go into for the audience. What a lot of people don't realize is that caffeine is a drug, okay? Correct. It is a drug like nicotine. It happens to be organically found, and I think I get a lot of questions on this. Just because something is organic does not imply safety, and that's something that's going to be that we're going to touch upon. But Yes, so caffeine is used, and remember, nothing that you take and you put into your body is for free. So, we use caffeine as a stimulant, so it gets you up in the morning, but ultimately there's a price to be paid for it. So I will make this kind of stipulation. Everything that we give, medical advice that we talk about, everyone should always consult their primary care physician, make sure that they get, customized feedback and tailored advice for their own health situation. What is very clear, though, with caffeine, and this is pure recommendation and scientific recommendation from the American Association of Pediatricians, which is the governing body, is that kids should not consume caffeine. They just should not. So below the age of 12, I believe, is their cutoff. You just should not consume it. And for the most part, we say below the age of 18. And the reason, it can cause irritability, it can cause mood swings, it can cause poor sleep habits, it can cause cognitive dysfunction, so they can't focus. So it should be just stayed away from as a kid. And you see these reports where, kids are taking, whatever brand. I'm not going to go into brands, but they go into brands and they take it, and they're training in football. They get dehydrated and they have a stroke or something to that effect. So you take it in the morning. You take it for a workout, or you just take it in general?
So I would take it in the morning. We'll just go with my current routine. So my current routine now is that I work out in the morning. So yes, I'm taking it in the morning to, as a stimulant for the workout. And then usually midday, I'm sipping on caffeine again as sort of a midday pick-me-up. And then I try my best to cut it off and not have any caffeine after 2 or 3, which I'm not the best at. And if you look at like the half-life of caffeine, there's, by midnight, there's probably still 50 to 100 milligrams of caffeine in my body, which probably explains my terrible sleep.
Yeah, and that's a vicious cycle because
terrible.
And people think you just take the caffeine, it works, and it burns off, and it really doesn't. So there's actually not a problem, but there is a scientific way to kind of calculate how much caffeine you can consume, and it's based upon your body weight in kilograms. And so
Old me should have been able to drink like unlimited.
Yeah. And first of all, we know you can't calculate kilograms, so I'll just do the math for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Just divide your body weight in pounds by 2. Roughly 2.25 is a kilogram, but by 2, just divide it in half, and that's your kilogram. And anywhere from 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram. So that means someone that weighs 150 pounds, you're looking at 200 to 400 milligrams of caffeine for those effects. Let me give you a little fact or fiction here. Taking more caffeine improves your workout functioning.
I'm going to say no, but what does more mean?
Yeah, so that's a good question. That's a good point. If you're getting into that 200, 300 milligrams and you're taking more, what ends up happening is you get jittery, you get GI upset, you get insomnia, all those things that kind of work.
The big thing that I will struggle with is drinking caffeine on an empty stomach in the morning will cause me to urinate so frequently that if I'm at the gym or I need to go for a run, it's like, even though I haven't really overhydrated, it just, obviously it's a diuretic, so it causes that, and that's really disruptive, aside from the other things like you just mentioned, the jitteriness and other stuff. Yeah,
so caffeine is a diuretic that causes you to urinate. It's a mild diuretic, but causes you to urinate. But I would probably talk to your PCP about a urinary tract infection or something else, because we know you're single, so there are other issues that could be at play besides just quote-unquote the caffeine issue, okay?
Yeah, okay.
So let me ask you this. How much caffeine do you think is present? Like, let's just start some simple things. And that's the thing that people don't realize, the dosing in common drinks. So let's say a Diet Coke, can of Diet Coke. How much caffeine do you think is in that?
30 to 50 milligrams.
That's right, 30 to 50 milligrams. How about a cup of coffee?
It's usually, I want to say it's around 100, but like maybe 80 to 120.
That's right, 100 milligrams. So a cup of coffee is 3 times as much caffeine as a Diet Coke. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So what people also don't realize is you take caffeine, just like nicotine, remember you take the first cigarette and you smoke it and take that you inhale, and you get that buzz, right? And then you start smoking a little bit more, and you don't see that effect. The same thing happens with coffee. You see people who are high metabolizers taking coffee for a long time, and then when they go to sleep at night, they can have an espresso, no big deal, and they fall asleep. What people don't realize, though, is it's still disrupting your sleep. While you may sleep through it, your quality of sleep is poor. And we'll talk about sleep in a different episode. So there's the price to be paid by that. So then they wake up in the morning, like you were saying, and all of a sudden you're kind of groggy, you're out of it, and you need that cup of coffee again or whatever you may take. So what do you do to combat increasing doses that you need from caffeine? So that means as long as you take caffeine, the longer you take it, increases. So what can you do to combat that?
I guess I don't know specifically, aside from abstaining from it, which would probably do something to reset the receptors. But there's a buddy of mine who I'd asked this question to because I was experiencing, being over caffeinated, not being able to wind down, sleep at night. And I can't remember explicitly what he said, but he did say there is something that you can take that will counteract and sort of, it wasn't like Benadryl or something, but it will help with the receptors and reset them so that you start losing the effect of the caffeine in the evening. But I don't remember what that was.
So we're trying to give our viewers and our audience scientific evidence. So nothing against your friend and his WebMD search, but we're going to say that the best way to come off of caffeine, tolerance is to just stop caffeine intake. 1 or 2 weeks. So that's what I typically do. I take a very low dose of caffeine. We'll start talking about that. And I take that just for a pre-workout mix. But, coming off of caffeine, even for a week, dramatically changes how much caffeine you need to take overall. So let's go back to this fact or fiction that we were talking about. How long, or actually, if you're going to use caffeine to work out, how long do you have to wait before the caffeine kind of takes its maximal effect?
15 to 30 minutes.
15 to 30 minutes. Yeah, in general, they say 30 to 60 minutes, which is why this fiction is, you see people sipping on a pre-workout mix, and they're sipping on it when they start the workout, and then 30 minutes into the workout, they're done, and they just get left with bad sleep, right? So you gotta time it if you're going to use it. So you don't want to take it right away. So you mentioned something before. You mentioned a product that you use, pre-workout mix. How did you decide on that product? I get that asked a lot.
Flavor, to be candid.
Flavor.
Flavor. I will cycle through pre-workouts. There's a few popular brands out there that I'm aware of, but it's typically, they've got strawberry watermelon. I want to try that flavor. But what I will say is I have gravitated towards sources of caffeine that are derived from coffee bean extract because it's more natural as opposed to products where it's, I call it like lab created caffeine. I don't know what the other types are, but you can tell me if that's makes a difference. But
well, why don't you ask your WebMD buddy? I mean, that's the guy you're going to for all the information. I mean, he should have his own podcast also, right? Let's get him on as a host. He could just type away at WebMD. And just,
I think he's pretty knowledgeable.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll let you and your buddy do a side podcast. You try to beat 36 followers, okay? Seriously. The gauntlet has been thrown down here. So let's talk about that. Caffeine does not matter whether it's organic or synthetic. None of that matters. So here's the problem what people don't understand, or not necessarily, but a lot of people don't understand, is that nutraceuticals, that means nutritional supplements, vitamins, these workout supplements, are not regulated by the FDA. So they can make claims without it being validated, and that's the problem. It's a fallacy. So, I told you about my buddy that was hospitalized, 47-year-old healthy male, hospitalized, liver failure, almost needed a liver transplant, taking quote-unquote organic supplements, ashwagandha, beetroot extract, and then had a reaction. That can happen. And we see that even when I operate on people, they're just taking quote-unquote organic supplements and they don't have good clotting factors. They continue to bleed in the operating room. So organic or synthetic caffeine doesn't really matter as much. What I would tell you is if you have you walked into a GNC and you see crazy different types of pre-workout mixes, right?
Yeah, like extreme pump.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And you see
And
someone
it's
like
got this stim. It's got the beta alanine in it, and so
Okay,
you
well, that's
scratching
right.
yourself. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But you walk in and you're looking at the coolest thing. You're looking like
Marketing.
Satan's head on a you know, it's like vampire fuel. Or there's another one that was banned, I think, in the NFL.
Jack.
It was
Jack
is it
3D. Yeah, that's what.
No,
yeah.
no. The deer
Oh,
antler.
bucked up.
Yeah, bucked up. Okay, you're a kid. I mean, these are purely related to guys and kids walking in, seeing some neon colored, brand that just kind of just jumps out at you and you consume it. So let's look at the back of those containers. The vast majority of them, and the back, say something to the effect of proprietary blend, and they don't have to disclose it. So I would tell you, number one off the bat, stay away from anything that says proprietary blend. You want to consume only products that you can identify. Number two, if you're going to use a pre-workout mix and you like the taste and you enjoy the taste, straight black coffee is phenomenal. I mean, take it. It's safe. It's just, some people don't like that hot liquid in the morning, working out. So I get that, but it is very safe to take. But you mentioned something. You mentioned beta-alanine. Why did you mention beta-alanine?
It is it's marketed as some kind of like magic supplement that improves your endurance, and it's typically combined with pre-workout. And because drinking caffeine by itself is not going to cause this stim reaction where you're like kind of itchy, and that's the beta-alanine that will give you that.
Well, let's talk about what do you think are some of the main supplements or main ingredients added into this pre-workout supplement? You mentioned beta-alanine. I'll break these each down for you. Beta-alanine, what else is kind of commonly put in there?
You're going to get me here. I'm thinking things like potassium or magnesium, but that's more
they have electrolytes. Yeah, you have that.
Yeah.
You're organic, so you're grinding your own deer antlers down and
Correct.
putting it into your coffee in the morning, right? Because your WebMD buddy told you, hey, get the natural deer antler, because that's going to be what really puts you over the top.
That's
so,
right.
Actually, you mentioned one, beta-alanine, and another one is called citrulline. You've probably seen those.
I've heard of that one, yeah.
Right? And then there's other compounds called tyrosine and theanine, and we'll break these down in a second here. And the other one,
L-theanine?
yeah, and so there's D.
That's
and
like a
L.
cognitive focus one, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So going back to the original premise, and also creatine. The main supplement in these is typically creatine. So you don't want to be taking creatine on top of creatine, so you kind of want to balance it with your pre-workout. So here's the deal. Beta-alanine, do you know what beta-alanine does?
I do not. It makes me scratch my skin. That's all I know.
So some people it's a tingling sensation.
Yeah.
What it does is it boosts something called carnosine in your muscle. That delays, or is thought to delay, the burn from lactic acid. So when you start feeling the soreness and you're cramping, it helps you to, quote unquote, maybe squeeze out a few extra reps. And so that's the beta-alanine. Now, the side effect of beta-alanine is that you get tingling. Some people say it's like cool water sensation. Some people get an itchy sensation. But that's the kind of the untoward side effect from it. Then there's other compounds like citrulline. Have you heard of that before?
I have, yeah.
So that citrulline acts as something called a vasodilator. That means
that's the pump.
That's right. That it increases your blood flow. Your blood vessels relax and widen, and it, quote unquote, delivers more oxygen and nutrients to the muscle. Once again, theoretically improving your performance. It's the opposite of if you work out in the cold, you feel tight, and your muscles feel a little bit stiffer, and it's because your blood vessels are contracting. It's kind of the opposite effect of that. And then we mentioned tyrosine and theanine, and there are different variations of this. And you mentioned something which is right on. It's your focus. So what people don't realize is that caffeine in increasing dosages causes you to lose your mental focus. So a little bit may stimulate you, but a lot or a high dose for your body you lose that focus and you get anxious and jittery and people feel like they're flying off the edge. So they use these other compounds to counteract it.
But, right, okay. But caffeine does not give you, I think it's a misconception that it gives you energy.
Well, it is a stimulant.
I know it's a stimulant, but chemically, it's actually more or less blocking fatigue more so than it is providing energy.
Well, remember, energy, this is now like, if we're going to go scientific on this, excuse your WebMD buddy, but energy is going to be, in the muscle, is going to be derived from that ATP that we mentioned, that three-headed phosphate on adenosine, and it breaks down, and creatine provides that extra phosphate and makes it ADP to go to ATP. That's the dynamite effect, right? So what I think you're trying to get at is, at some point as your body and you're working out, it depletes its glycogen or its carbohydrate stores, and it needs that energy to continue the pump and the muscle.
You might feel fatigued because you've depleted that, and then drinking more caffeine simply will inhibit the receptors from you, allowing you to feel more tired, but it's not replacing it's not like you going and replacing those stores by eating something like carbs after a workout or during your workout. You'd have to actually ingest those to refill the energy lost by the workout.
Yeah, so you're going to lose energy because you're going to break down a certain amount of, whether that be fat, carbohydrates, to increase your quote unquote energy levels in your blood. You're going to have to replace that with food, which you mentioned, sugars, proteins for the amino acids that you deplete in your muscle. Fat, what gets burned. Caffeine does not provide, like you're saying, the caloric energy consumption. It just merely stimulates you. So at some point, you cannot live on caffeine only. At some point, you become fatigued. Well, I mean, you may, yeah. You may, but in general, you can't. And so, yes, so that's why they talk about, and we will talk about this at some other time point, but like when you have a significant strenuous workout, then maybe some amount of, low glucose consumption can be very helpful, complex carbohydrate, depending upon what you're doing. NFL players typically eat like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at halftime, or something else that that you can refuel yourself. But going back to caffeine, you are right. It is a stimulant. At some point, what it does is it reduces what you perceive, your exertional levels. So you feel like you can do more, but you're not compensating for that with extra quote unquote energy. Right. So when you go back, now let's go back and let me ask you this: fact or fiction? All pre-workouts have safe caffeine levels.
Oh no.
So that's one big variation. So we talked about one bullseye, which is because the FDA is not regulating these things, you have to look on the back. So, when you look on the back, you'll see massive changes in caffeine, in doses.
Let me ask you this on that topic. It depends at the rate in which it's ingested, because there's a difference between taking a scoop of pre-workout, like Bucked Up, for instance, has 300. I've seen it where it has 330 in a scoop. Putting that into, 4 to 6 ounces of water and slamming 330 milligrams of caffeine like that in a chug, versus if you drank that same 330 in a tall glass of water over the course of 60 to 90 minutes. There has to be a different impact based on the rate of ingestion.
Yep.
That's
Absolutely.
what I would see. That's what I don't do. So when I drink pre-workout, it's in 8 to 10 ounces of water. I drink it over the course of 15, 25 minutes. I don't slam it, but oftentimes in the gym, some people just dry scoop it. They just go right to their mouth.
That's what I was going to get to. Dry scooping was that consumption of caffeine. So let's just be very clear. Caffeine is absorbed almost instantaneously in your body. Now, it takes a little while, 30, 60 minutes to render its effect. But I'm going to pause you on your statement.
Okay.
The half-life of caffeine is 5 hours. That means for people out there, if you take 100% of caffeine, in 5 hours you'll have 50%. and then an additional 5 hours at 50 will be 25%, and it diminishes exponentially. So, whether you delay the onset of caffeine by 30 or 60 minutes, you're still getting that same kind of peak, okay? Does that make sense? Like, you're consuming all of it. Now, dry scooping, the problem with dry scooping is that you are essentially concentrating that. It's meant to be, we'll say, a more even absorption over that time. Even though the peak will come up, it doesn't sharply peak up and come straight down. It's a more simple kind of absorption line. So you should never dry scoop, number one. Number two, if you're going to start a pre-workout mix and you're relatively caffeine naive, I would recommend starting very low dosages. I typically use 100 milligrams. I'm very caffeine naive and insensitive, so I typically only use 100 milligrams of caffeine. And that's typically for most pre-workout mixes.
Half a scoop.
One-third,
or one-third,
one-third to half a scoop max.
Yeah.
And when I feel like that's not working for me, after about 6 to 8 weeks, I take a 4 or 5 day or 1 week pause, and then I reset, and I take it back again to 100. I'm not trying to get
rather than
200,
200, yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's the dangerous situation. Because remember, you're consuming caffeine, and then you're also consuming all this other kind of pseudo-scientific mumbo-jumbo with it. Your citrulline, the beta-alanine, all these other things that you're going to consume on top of it, which we don't really know the scientific endpoint, what it does to your body.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Are you taking it in a staged fashion? You're drinking it for a little bit before you work out?
Yeah, like I said, so my daily routine is up at around 4:15 in the morning. Drink that over the course of probably 20 to 30 minutes.
That's interesting because when I email you some work-related questions, you're not responding. Huh?
That's just, purposely not responding.
I see it clearly.
Just ignoring
you. Yeah, clearly.
Ignoring
I see that. You're up at 4:15, but when my email goes out at 5 a.m., I'm not getting a response. You must be still grinding down your bucked-up antlers, for your pre-workout mix.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't chug it. I don't dry scoop it. I found when I do that, I don't like the feeling that comes with it. It's like too much of a rush, and I used to do that. Chug the whole thing in 3 seconds.
Let's be very clear. Remember when we first started working out together? We were lifting. We would take the C4. We would pound
Cellucor, intense.
So we would pound the C4. We get the tingle. We get all hyped up, and then you'd burn out quickly. And you just left with like arrhythmia and and an ER visit.
You get done, and then it actually hits you.
That's right. So think about this, and this is another topic. Like caffeine. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you say about caffeine, and I can drink an espresso before to go to sleep. Caffeine disrupts your sleep, and we just mentioned it. You can fall asleep, but not all sleep is created equal, and we're going to have a whole segment on that. So 5 hours to burn off 50%. So if you're taking caffeine at 3, 4 o'clock, that means by 8, 9, you still have 50% of the caffeine. And for an old man like me that goes to sleep at 7:30, then that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So be careful in the consumption. By the way, a funny aside, my wife and our kids, we go down to Naples, which is the boring side of Florida for those who don't know. And it's the octogenarian club down there. But we've convinced our kids that there's a meal called Linner, which is lunch dinner, right? We call it Linner. And they believe that it's actually
3:30.
Yeah. So we go there to this one pizza place, and I'm not going to brand sponsor them until they send us a couple bucks. We go to this pizza place, and we show up for dinner or Linner 2:45 to 3:15. We are 2 hours ahead of the octogenarians, and
the place has got to
early
be empty.
It is just us. So we get our pizza, whatever it is, by 3:45. I'm carb drunk, and I'm passing out by 6:30, 7 o'clock, and that's a perfect night for me. But I couldn't do that if I take the caffeine. Sorry for the side note.
Yeah.
So let's kind of look at the caffeine and let's go over the summary of this. Number one, kids should not take caffeine. There is very good evidence that it can affect neurodevelopment milestones in young kids. It affects their sleep. It can result in arrhythmias. The American Association of Pediatricians say 0 caffeine before the age of 12. I would argue there is no need. Kids are amped up anyway before 16 to 18. Just should not exist. 2, watch the amount of caffeine you are taking. If you're a weekend warrior, don't just take random amounts of caffeine. Slowly introduce it into your pre-workout kind of regimen. 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams. If you can do coffee, absolutely. That would be the ideal situation. 30 to 60 minutes beforehand. And if you're going to use a pre-workout supplement, please look on the back. Make sure you're not consuming something with a proprietary blend. That means a special compound. You do not know what those compounds are, and they can have negative side effects. Make sure you don't take just the full scoop. Dose down your caffeine levels, like I mentioned, 100 milligrams, 200 milligrams. And then if you find yourself becoming tolerant to it, take a week off and then start back up again. Usually most of these pre-workout mixes will have your daily amounts of creatine as well. Is there anything I missed up or left out on that?
No, I'm going to try to, if I can, do a week, and then when we record our next episode next week, I'll report and see if I made it through the headaches and the withdrawal.
Well, how much caffeine are you taking now? Let's start with that. Actually, let's do how I would tell you how to wean off caffeine and make it more effective. Because a lot of people want to know, so you tell me.
Yeah, it's between 400 and 500 a day.
How? So you start off in the morning.
Start off in the morning. That's going to be the biggest chunk. That's going to be anywhere from 200 to 250 in the form of a pre-workout mixed with water. And then they'll have either a coffee or one energy drink, which is going to be anywhere from another 150 to 200. And that's usually sometime midday. And midday is probably between noon and 1. So lunchtime.
For our audience out there, Alex is jacked, and when he lifts, he really lifts. So you want that pump from the caffeine in the morning. So that's a hard one to remove. What I would tell you is the following. You're taking an additional 200 to 250 milligrams of caffeine throughout the day. Don't go cold turkey. What I would tell you is that 250, make it 1 cup of coffee. Make it 100 milligrams over a week. And then take that coffee out and make it half a cup of coffee. Okay. And then I bet you your 200 milligrams or 250 taken in the morning will be that much more intense for you. Yeah. So just you can do something like, and most people out there also, if you're taking the coffee, don't go cold turkey on it because you can get the side effects, headaches, nausea, all those things. You want to basically wean down. Maybe remove a cup of coffee, cut it in half, whatever it may be, dilute it. All those things are easy ways to get the maximum beneficial effect of the caffeine.
All right.
All right, everybody. Stay tuned for next week's drop. It's going to be top secret until we figure it out what we're going to do. But we're open to suggestions. Let us know. Thanks for spending the last 30 minutes with us.